Hello everyone, welcome to the Radiance Hub YouTube channel. In our previous video of classicism, we started from classic, then classical, then classicism. Now in the second video, we will continue classicism and its influence. As we talked how Seneca in Roman literature was influenced by Greek tragedians. In the similar manner, Virgil in Roman literature in Latin language was inspired by Homer. Now, in the 12th century, we find Greco-Roman models used by writers of the French and German courtly romances. We talked about courtly romance in the Renaissance, what courtly romance is all about. Now, in 12th century, we see the influence of this classical literature, this Greek literature, Roman literature, on the writers of 12th century in France and in Germany, and where it was there in courtly romances, to be brief or to be compact. The imitation of the rules of classical poetics is another very important development. So only literature was not copied or imitated. Poetics means not the writing only, the only name of the writing of Aristotle. Obviously Aristotle wrote poetics, but poetics, the rules and regulations, whatever are there in literature, they all come under poetics. So, this imitation of rules of classical poetics is also a very important development. That imitation also took place. Here see, poetics in Greek by Aristotle, and Horace, he wrote Ars Poetica in Latin. These were two major influences in 15th and 16th century. Again, this influence came under Renaissance in 15th and 16th century. Aristotle's shadow lies heavily over much drama from the 16th century to the end of the 18th century. When it comes to drama, remember, Aristotle was the one in Greek literature, in Greek poetics, who talked about tragedy, who defined tragedy, who talks of catharsis. He talks of various elements, talks of plot, character, unity. I hope you are aware of unities: unity of time, unity of place, unity of action. So such things were very much there in drama from 16th century to the 18th century. When it comes to Shakespeare, he did not follow all the things, and that's why he was romantic, not very much classical. Obviously he had a class in himself, but he is considered to be romantic. As we know, Aristotle talked about all the unities and expects that all the unities should be present there in the drama. In unity of action, he says that any drama should have only one kind of element. Either it should be tragedy or comedy or something like that. In unity of place, he talks that play should remain at the same place. Various settings should not be there. And in unity of time, it was expected that any incident of 24 hours should be taken for the literature, for the drama, and these all were mainly violated by Shakespeare. In French writers, in French dramatists, you will see they follow this unity of place very much, many a times. Okay, so his shadow lies heavily over much drama from the 16th century to the end of the 18th century. So see, when you talk of Poetics by Aristotle, its influence were mainly visible in 15th and 16th century. When it comes to drama, his shadow, his influence remains from 16th to 18th century. This is how you may understand how Aristotle impacted the writers, the critics from 15th century to 18th century. Now, in this slide, again, classicism is continued. Many commentators on Aristotle in the 16th century diffused his theories of imitation. Now we have to understand. For understanding, for comprehending a great writer, sometimes there is need of some commentators. They, through their commentary, make the works easier to understand. For example, we know in Indian poetics there is a great sage Bharat who wrote Natya Shastra. So Natya Shastra was easily understood when Abhinav Gupta had commentary on that. Even it is about again about Anandavardhana. When we have commentary on him, then the work was easily understood. In a similar manner, there were several commentators. They had commentaries on Aristotle, and that is how his ideas, his theories of imitation were diffused. Diffused means widely spread. Views of tragedy and epic were regarded as almost gospel. You can say a daily kind of conversation on any place. So tragedy and epic, these two topics were widely talked upon, talked of among people like gospel. In Christianity, we understand the concept of gospel, how stories are there, intertwined, intermixed. Now, let's talk about the principal commentators. Italian commentators first, and these were, there may be some mistake in pronouncing their names because they belong to several countries and they might be known differently. We'll try to have English pronunciation. Robertelli, Sagni, Maggi Vettori, and Castelvetro. Once again, commentators on Aristotle from Italy: Robertelli, Sagni, Maggi Vettori, and Castelvetro. In England, we have one person, Scaliger. He wrote Poetica in 1561. So Scaliger must be remembered by the students of literature, English literature. Now, so this was about Aristotle. Now come to Horace. His remarks on decorum, the propriety of language and style, the mutual propriety of action and character, and his insistence on craftsmanship were also analyzed and disseminated by commentators in the 16th century. So 16th century, Horace was also commented upon. And what were his remarks mainly? Main ideas by Horace. He remarked on decorum, propriety of language, what kind of language should be used, style, mutual propriety of action and character, how action and character should have mutual link, or appropriateness of link should be there. And he talked of craftsmanship. So these all were commented upon, and the major commentators again from Italy, Vida Rubatelli, Joachim du Bellay, Pierre de Ronsard, and Sir Philip Sidney there in England, and he wrote Apology for Poetry in 1595. So in this slide you should remember at least two works. One by Scaliger, who wrote Poetica on poetics, and other one is Sir Philip Sidney, who wrote Apology for Poetry on Horace, Ars Poetica. Okay, now let's talk of the influence again. Influence on drama was Seneca in tragedy, and that's why we have Senecan tragedies there in 16th century England. Before Shakespeare, the tragedy which used to be written were mainly Senecan. Even John Webster also, when he wrote The Duchess of Malfi, you can say it has the elements of Senecan tragedy when several murders took place. In Senecan tragedy especially, we see that murders or assassinations, killings are portrayed on this stage. In Shakespeare, you have that on backstage. So Seneca was the main figure who influenced tragedy to such an extent that we have a subspecies known as Senecan tragedy. This is how a man becomes important, when the works are known on his name, like Seneca. He influenced tragedy, that's why Senecan tragedy. As we know about Shakespeare, how his era is known as Shakespearean, drama of his era is known as Shakespearean drama. Even he was not born, that era is known as pre-Shakespearean, and after him, the drama used to be known as post-Shakespearean. That also happened with Jesus Christ when we see BC and AD, before Christ and Anno Domini. This is how great people, they affect the time. The time is known by them. Classicism was strongest in France in the 17th and 18th century. Very strong in England. So these two countries, when we talk of the impact of classicism, we'll have to remember these two countries. One is France, the other one is England. France was strongly affected, influenced. In France, the main authors to follow classical precepts. What are the names of those authors in France? Corneille, Racine, Molière, Voltaire, Boileau, and La Fontaine. And when you talk of most influential treatise by a Frenchman, in this respect is undoubtedly Boileau's work. That is not clearly visible here. Now, English authors. When you talk of English authors to follow classical rules and modes, these names were of Ben Jonson, John Dryden, Alexander Pope, Jonathan Swift, Joseph Addison, and Dr. Samuel Johnson. When you talk of German writers in the second half of the 18th century, these were Winckelmann, Lessing, Goethe, Schiller, Hölderlin, and in Italian we have Alfieri. The Germans, however, were not interested in French neoclassicism or the Roman authors. They were mainly, affected by Greek literature, Greek forms, and they went back to the Greeks and imitated Greek forms. Now, when we talk of its existence of classicism, whether it got extinct or it's there, it's visible, or its existence is there. When something is totally disappeared from the scenario, that is called extinct. It may be disappeared for a point of time, but that does not happen for forever. That's why when we talk of classicism, either classicism or romanticism, obviously we must understand that how history is very much cyclic, how things repeat with the passage of time. There is a possibility that the particular thing remains very much dominating in a particular era, it becomes disappeared in the coming era, again it may appear in the next of that. That happens with classicism as well, and that is why it cannot be called extinct. See, we talked of classical literature, we talked of ancient literature, we talked of Greeks and Romans. They used to write their literature, it used to be called classical literature. So, was it that, was it only classical literature? No. As we talked, their influences, also come under that umbrella term. So, it is not extinct. In the 20th century, a revival of interest in classical literature, it was there in classical themes in drama, fiction, and verse. And when we talk, it was especially in French drama, and particularly in the plays of Sartre, Jean-Paul Sartre. I hope you know him, Nobel laureate, very much known for his absurd theater, absurd literature, existentialism, where he talked of existentialism, Cocteau, Zerodox, and all. I already told you that names may be mispronounced because of their belonging to different countries. So this was all regarding this classicism. I hope now you have a greater idea regarding classicism. Thanks for your patience. Thank you very much. Have a nice day.